Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss if handheld gaming, dedicated handheld gaming, is going to make its own comeback. I really think it's an interesting time that we're in right now, and I guess I should specify, dedicated handheld. I'm talking, like Game Boy Advance is dedicated handheld. Switch 2 is not dedicated. That's just a portable console. The Steam Deck, I don't count as like dedicated, like a company made this specifically where it's like you can only get these handheld games like this. You can only get these cartridges, or we're going PSP, like the UMDs and stuff like that. We are talking, this cannot be just switched over to a PC. It's not playable on this other console. Maybe if you do streaming, because Sony liked to do that back in the day. Where it was like, yeah, you could play this on here and on your PlayStation 3. So maybe at this point we would have a bit of that technology going back and forth, a little bit of crossplay there. But we're talking dedicated handheld consoles and not just little streaming PCs where you can kind of play what you want. Like the PlayStation Portal does not apply. Although it's definitely gotten closer with that new update that they just put out, because it's like, hey, you can basically just play everything you have downloaded, at least PS5 wise. So I was like, okay, you can buy that without getting a PlayStation. I personally would not recommend that at all, because that sounds crazy to me. I'm like, just save the extra. Oh, well, it's not. I don't even know how much the PS5 costs anymore now. Because I was like, oh, just save the extra couple hundred. I'm like, it might be like an extra $400 now. I genuinely don't remember. So with all the price hikes, maybe it is worth something, because it's only $250 for that. But it's different when it was like, just save up the extra $100 or $200. Like, it might be like $400 extra now. I can't remember. So maybe it has its merits. But that is not what I'm discussing. We're talking, like Game Boy style, where it's like you have to have these cartridges to play these games, the UMD to play on, PSP, or at the very least just download it once it got to like the Vita and stuff like that. And there have been rumors for quite a while with both Xbox as well as PlayStation that, they're both thinking like, yeah, we're gonna get into it, because they even mentioned that from, before the ROG, Asus ROG Ally X, there we go. Before that even came out, it was like, yes, we're teaming up with them, but this is not our dedicated thing, because the rumor started before that was announced. And it was like, yeah, this is a thing we're partnering with, but it's not our dedicated handheld thing. So it's like, okay, so they have something coming out. Their chips are probably all in that basket at this point, with Steam busting out their new items, where it's like, hey, that whole, Steam on PC, but, very simple mini console that you can just plug and play. I'm sure it'll have, its additional features. Boy, oh boy, that's so fascinating. But I have a whole episode on that, so you guys can check that out. But I'm sure their chips are in that basket now, as far as like, we should jump into handheld gaming officially. So it'll be interesting to see if that really pans out. And of course, PlayStation is doing the same thing. And once again, these are all just rumors, and that's what we've been hearing, that there are plans to have that happen. But it'll be interesting if that route is even taken. Like, can dedicated handheld gaming even make a comeback at this point? Like, I know that the install base when it comes to Steam Deck and Asus and ROG, like all of those, is still smaller for sure. And I think that's, with the recent Steam announcement, it's been like, hey, that they're kind of tapping into that market as far as like the console base, where it's like, hey, here's the kind of PC element of like what a lot of people get with their handheld gaming, which is a ton of people, not a whole ton of people, but it's a decent chunk. It's enough for them to actually do it consistently. And now they're branching out and being like, well, what if we just did like a simplified PC console sort of situation? Excuse me. And they've tapped into that, and they've already been doing the Steam Deck. Like I said, we've got Asus and ROG, and I think it was Asus, if I'm not mistaken, that has like a billion of those effing things. Like, they were treating that junk like Xbox, where it was like every 2 minutes they were like, we have a new version. And it was the same as Xbox, where it's like every time I'm thinking of getting a new console, they're like, we're making the next console. It was like, that's how it felt with like Asus when they were doing stuff probably like a year and a half ago. It felt like every 3 months they had a new version that was like, this version is better than this version is the weaker version, but it's newer than that last version, but it's not as good as the new version that's coming out. And then 4 months later, this version's not as good as this one, but it's still better than the other three. And it's like, what are you talking about? So we finally got to a point where I think that's been very streamlined. And mostly the conversation, based on what I've been hearing, it's mostly Steam Deck, and then of course the ROG Xbox Ally, which I don't know why they didn't just call it that instead of like the ROG, Xbox Ally X and all that stuff. Is like, just call it the ROG Ally. But anyway, it's been kind of streamlined down, and those are kind of the big two at this point. Steam Deck has kind of been going strong, and then ROG, the new one, is kind of name adjacent with it being, Microsoft based and, literally a dedicated Xbox button on it and everything. So those are kind of the two big ones at this point that really get a lot of the limelight in terms of real conversation. But when you're going into dedicated gaming, how does that really play out at this point? Like, we're in, of course, a digital age. It's more and more digital every single, generation, and every single day, honestly, even within one generation, every day is just more and more digital. So it'll be interesting to see how that really pans out when it's like, okay, are you gonna make an actual dedicated console that is not going to play, console games? Is it gonna be its own batch of games? Because I don't know if we're in the market for that to really work. Like, I think it has to be a blend at this point. It has to be what PlayStation was doing a while back, where it's like, hey, if you buy this over here, you can also get it on PlayStation, like on the actual console. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if you're doing that, and of course, obviously I'm not in the business and marketing and stuff like that, but with the way things have gone, just the past couple years, this is just me as a nerdy person on the outside looking in, there's been nothing but problem after problem company-wise. And it doesn't really matter the company. We can definitely say Xbox has had a few more problems, but PlayStation as well. It's not like they've been, slipping by and doing great. They got like some games that come out that I love, but then it's also like, man, they were just really riding that free-to-play train right into the ground. Let's see what happens with Marathon. Is Fair Game still coming out? As far as this recording, still not officially canceled. We will see what happens with that. Blows my mind, but haven't heard anything about it. Maybe the only thing we'll hear is that we won't be hearing too much about it. But it's such an interesting thing to think about, where it's like, what's the point at this point in time? Not just where people are, digital gaming, cross-platform, cross-buy, tariffs, price increase on everything, increased digital stuff, increased hardware stuff. Like, there's been so many things, and then, a bunch of failures, because it's like, this didn't make $100 billion, fire all these people. There's so much stuff that just makes me think, wouldn't it just be a waste of their time and money to be dedicating brand new handheld consoles? Like, that's just how I'm seeing it, but it's so hard to say. Like, with the way that things are done now, the realm of handheld gaming is Steam Deck type of stuff, and it is the ROG Ally. And it just makes me wonder, like, well, if these consoles do dedicated versions, what's really going to be their install base? Like, granted, people, and it's funny to think about this because of the element of mobile games and, people playing games on their phone like crazy now. It just makes me wonder, like, okay, part of me says, yes, you could easily do that, especially if you're the actual big company, and you could partially even look at Nintendo, because they were like, all right, well, we've been like the kings of handheld. We've been doing it forever. We are the kind of the ones that really pioneered it in a sense. And they weren't, it wasn't like the only thing out there, but it was a lot better than, the little, they even had the Game & Watch style, but I can't even think, was it JLN that used to do the little ones where it was just like, I can't even call them sprites. I don't even know what you would call those things, but when it was just the black figures and you just tap left and right, I don't even know what you call, do you call them stencils? Whatever that is, like the cheapest of cheap games where it's just black characters on a slightly colored background. Like, they pioneered some stuff and they went beyond that. They made the Game Boy Color, Advance, Pocket, Light, all that good stuff. 3D, like DS, 3DS, 2DS, the 18 trillion versions that they made of that thing. And then they said, all right, we're done. We got the Switch, and now we got the Switch 2. We're blending home and portable. They kept it simple. They kept the cost down. They make one thing, and that's just where you play. If you want to take it with you, you do it. If you want to leave it at home, that's what you do. And it makes me wonder, if Xbox tries to do that, and if Sony tries to do that, how does that work? Because they aren't going to do what Nintendo does. They aren't going to switch it up and be like, poof, here you go. We're just changing things. Xbox might do it. They'll just throw anything that sticks at this point, because it's like they're in a real dangerous spot. Console wars being over and all that stuff. Even when it comes to jokey posts, is like, well, nothing exclusive. The one thing that a lot of people have referenced, like I said, with the new Steam situation coming up, where it was like, that was the one random hope on earth. Like, man, if they could integrate with Steam, maybe they could pull something off. And it's like, yeah, Xbox and Steam, you get like one pseudo PC console hybrid situation. And Steam was like, nah, or Valve, I always just say Steam, but Valve, they're just like, nah, we got it. We'll do it ourselves, and we'll put faceplates on it and make $1 billion off of that. So they've done that, and now Xbox is just kind of like, oh, what do we do? So it'll be interesting to see what in the world they end up doing in general. But then it's like, all right, with the realm of, like I said, the handheld gaming, I think that's just where it is now. Like, it would almost be weird to have someone make a console and just be like, yeah, it's just this. Like, it almost feels pointless to not have it just be like what everything else already is, where it's just like, just let it be PC games. PlayStation would have to make their own service if they decided to make it PlayStation exclusive, so it would be all of the games they have, you know, whether it's exclusive or not, everything that's on the console. But it's just an interesting thing, because then, you know, of course, that leads people into looking up the information, like, okay, well, do I get the PlayStation dedicated handheld, or do I go for, you know, what we, you know, a lot of people would probably be like, well, what's a Steam Deck? I've never heard of that. Or what is Asus, or what is ROG? Like, there are going to be tons of people that game that are going to find out that there have been, you know, like gaming handhelds, but it's like, okay, that's like a, you know, just a cheaper PC. It's more portable. So do I just go for that and get all my PC stuff? Or do I go for PlayStation exclusively? Or do I go for Xbox exclusively? And then that's where, like, that really big question comes in. And then Xbox, I'm sure, would have a lot of different caveats where it's like, hey, if you get it here, you have Game Pass, which I would assume, and this is just me rambling and saying, like, this is what I think they should do if they do it. If they're gonna have an Xbox portable, they have to make it like the console. Because this is something that I like bringing up every time. Xbox, like, Game Pass for console is different than Game Pass for PC. And this is, you know, like, it's a different thing, and they have to make it like it's as if you have the actual console. And I'm curious what that entails. Like, are they going to be able to pull that off? If they make it, does it have to be just a straight up Xbox but portable? How do they exactly pull that off without it being overpriced? Which I think overpriced is the name of the game at this point, especially with tariffs. But let's be honest, the tariffs could, like, literally do the exact opposite, and then people are literally given money. And the companies are going to be like, yeah, but the prices stay the same. Because that's how companies work. They aren't in the business of losing money. They're in the business of making money. So regardless of tariffs or anything like that, it's going to be expensive. And that's the thing where I'm just like, is it worth it to make something new and expensive? They're already, you know, for Xbox side, they're already working on whatever this next console is going to be. Whether it's a weird console PC hybrid, which just seems nearly unappealing at this point, despite the fact that, you know, you could get regular Xbox Game Pass and not just PC Game Pass. But I don't know. I mean, and it's possible. It's unlikely, I feel, because of Valve doing it themselves. But it's possible that they still do like a little team up situation. I don't know how that would play out. And like I said, it seems even less likely, because it was already like, well, how do you do the money distribution if someone buys a Steam game on your Xbox console? What's the percentage and all that stuff? So it was already like another layer of money. And I was like, well, we don't even have to worry about you. We just did it ourselves. And so does that leave Xbox out? I mean, admittedly, if Steam did it, it's not like they have to do anything. It's not like they're making the games. So in all honesty, it would just make them more money anyway, because there's going to be people that do go for Xbox versus going for, I recently heard someone call it the Gabe Cube, which I thought was amazing. I was saying I wish they just called it the Steam Box, because it was just in my head. But with the way things are going, and of course we also have to see about price for that as well, because we don't know the price yet. But there's a lot to it where I'm just like, I don't know if the market is really worth it for a handheld. And that's the thing. It'll be exciting enough that people will buy it. That's the funny part. Like, I know there are going to be enough people that buy it just because, like, oh, that's interesting. There'll be a ton of people complaining, but that's the internet. You know, I mean, heck, look at the Switch 2. Everybody was complaining left and right, and so many effing people bought it, and it's like the fastest selling console, like, on record. So it doesn't really matter when people are complaining. It's, you know, much like the anti-woke stuff. Like, it doesn't matter who's really complaining. You just wait. You know, enough people are excited. Enough people don't care about little nuances and crap like that. It's like, look, I want this effing thing. I'm going to buy the thing. So there are going to be enough people that are excited to at least give it a launch, whether it's Xbox or PlayStation. But it's longevity. That's the question. A lot of these PC handhelds are doing decent. Like I said, as of now, it's really the Steam Deck and then the Ally X that's kind of doing the main thing. But I don't know if longevity is kind of the name of the game. And like I said, once again, Xbox versus PlayStation, two different levels of that. Xbox could easily, if they do a handheld thing, like I said, it has to be full-on Game Pass, like console Game Pass, not PC Game Pass. And then at the same time, they're gonna throw in the Xbox Play Anywhere stuff. So it's going to be like, all right, you have our dedicated handheld. You can switch that over to PC. If you have it on PC, here you go. If you have it on this thing, there you go. They might potentially even implement it where if you buy it here, you have it there as well. I don't know if that's really going to be the case. I don't know if, I think that's what Xbox, the Play Anywhere. I haven't had an Xbox since 360, so apologies for like not knowing the fine details of it. I just assume if you have the Xbox Play Anywhere, it at least has to be, once again, this goes between that whole console PC thing. If you have regular Game Pass like on console, you should be set for PC, but it doesn't work vice versa. Like if you have it on PC, it's not necessarily guaranteed that it's on console. Or no, if you have it on console, it's not guaranteed that it's on PC. That's what it is, because it's a much smaller list if you do PC Game Pass. So the Play Anywhere thing, I think, is how that works. And you just buy it, and then you can just transfer over to whatever you just like load up a launcher on, if you're able to do it, if it has a PC port, which would be a lot easier. For anything coming out, you'll be fine. It's just if you decide you want to try to go backwards or something like that, that's where you're running the issues there. But going forward, that should be, that shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. So they'll have their elements, quick start and, all that good stuff that they've had for quite a while. And then on the PlayStation side, it's like, all right, well, we've seen, and a lot of people, there's been speculation because there was the recent cross-buy situation. It was like, well, what in the world does that mean? And so that led into, more conversation about, the gaming handheld on the PlayStation side of things. And like I said, they've already done that before, kind of akin to the Xbox Play Anywhere situation. It was like, hey, we have a PlayStation 3 and we have our PSP, or I think at the time it was the Vita, and we've made it to where the games are powerful enough to just transfer over. I mean, obviously, if it can play on a portable, it can play on like the home console. But, at this point, it's like, that's another element. How strong are the games going to be portable? Is it going to be like a, maybe a Switch situation where it's like, all right, well, if you play it docked, which would be in this case on PlayStation, if you play it on the console, it's up to this level. Maybe you'll hit kind of the classic stuff. You'll hit the 4K 60 frames upscaled, all that crap. But if you're playing on our portable console, you can hit like 1080p 120 frames per second or 4K 30 at least. They'll do the variations as they always do now. And it's like, okay, maybe that's how they do it. And then you cross buy it. So if you buy it in one place, you do have it in both. That would be an interesting way to do it, because that way you could just jump back and forth. And it's like, all right, this game I like playing portably, so I'll just I'll just jump over here. I'll, drop it down a bit, very akin to the PlayStation Portal right now, except it would be more dedicated. I don't know exactly what you would do to make it more dedicated, especially with the recent PlayStation Portal update, which, like I said, kind of does make it its own thing a little bit. It makes it a portable console. I don't know, as far as setup and like starting a new account, I don't know if you need a PlayStation. I would assume you wouldn't, because you can technically, I would imagine you could just go online and create the account on the Sony website if you were like brand new to PlayStation. But I'm sure you could set that up from the PlayStation Portal itself. So with the way that that's set up, if that cross-buy thing that popped up recently was actually something, that would be where it would lead to, in my personal opinion. I don't know if we should expect that anytime soon. It's a crazy thing to randomly have that pop up as a cross-buy, because it's like, well, if you buy it here, maybe that was, another speculation was like, well, maybe that's for console versus PC. So that was another thing. Like, it could have nothing to do with portable, but at the same time, what if it's just all of it? What if the cross-buy was for PC, and then when the portable stuff comes out, whatever the new portable is going to be, it's just all of them. And it's like, hey, you cross-buy this, or this game has cross-buy, and it's the same as Xbox Play Anywhere. Boom, I bought it on my PlayStation 6, we'll just say it's the 6. Got it on my PS6, got it on my, whatever they're going to do. I don't know if they can find another way to call something a PSP, because that's what the Portal is. We had the actual PSP, we had the Vita. Was it the PSP Go? Like, I never bought like any handhelds from anyone. Like, I stopped at handhelds at Game Boy Advance. So that's like my weird, like, missing bit of information. Like, I don't remember the timeline of like when certain handhelds came out. I was kind of out of the game on that. Like, so I've been like pretty much strictly console for like over a decade at this point. But when it comes to all of those, whatever the next one's going to be, if the cross-buy thing was just console and PC, they're definitely going to be like, all right, well, we'll just pop it over to whatever the portable console is going to be. And then that gets into digital versus physical again. Like, if you buy it physical, would they allow you to get a digital version? That would be pretty cool. If you buy cross-buy, you automatically have the digital version because you got the PC version. So that would automatically get you the portable version, I would assume. Once again, all speculation and, just off the dome, like just thinking about how it could work. So it would be interesting to see them give it a shot because the mechanics are there. Like I said, PlayStation already did that with the PS3 where it's like you could buy it on the portable, you can play it on the PS3 as well. Xbox already has Xbox Anywhere, so you can just hop around on everything because everything's an Xbox, of course. So they could easily implement that. That's probably their last ditch effort to even have anything physical because it's just at this point, I don't see them doing a new console and a handheld thing because I just don't feel like they're in the right position to do that. On top of where the community is, they're like in the worst position, but just a handheld would probably do the trick. Just make it really strong, just like all the little handhelds that we have right now, and then have that, and then just have everything go to PC, which once again, you can't do that for technically everything because you got all the older stuff. So they kind of have to have a console as well, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I don't know if, like I said, the whole point of this was, is it possible for dedicated handheld gaming to really make a comeback? And I just don't know. I don't think it's possible as far as the cartridge thing where I'm like, you know, UMDs and all that stuff where it's a different platform. I think at this point, all the handhelds would be digital. I don't think they would even bother being like, yeah, we're gonna make new this or new that or smaller disc. I don't think any of that's gonna happen. I think if dedicated handheld comes back, it will just be like the Steam Deck. It's just gonna be strictly digital, and it's like if you bought it, you have it digitally, and maybe if you have it physically, you know, hit it with the Play Anywhere or cross-buy or whatever, and then poof, you can play it on whatever the portable PlayStation is. Xbox is already, you know, 90% digital anyway, so that'll, whenever they do it, it's pretty much guaranteed. That's how they'll set that up. But it'll be interesting to see if they really decide to give it a shot anyway. What in the world happens when you decide, hey, we're gonna make a portable gaming console officially? This is the Xbox one, this is the PlayStation one. It seems like it's not the right market. I mean, heck, it barely seems like the right market for the next generation of consoles, but we're already headed there too. So it's one of those weird things that's up in there where I'm like, I personally don't think they should do it. Just stick to making the next actual consoles better. Xbox can do it, but like I said, they have the older games because they've been trying to keep everything together for a long time. So I think they'll probably stick with, you know, possibly just having to do both. But for PlayStation, I'm like, I think they should just stick strictly to console and let Xbox do what they're gonna do. Let Nintendo be Nintendo and weird. And then that's just how it goes. But I would love to know your thoughts on this. Like I said, it's all up in the air. Everyone will try everything. They have more than enough money, especially with everybody constantly firing every single company that doesn't make them $1 trillion. They got enough money to give it a shot. So I'm sure it'll happen, guaranteed. But I would love to know your thoughts on that. What's the future, if any, of dedicated handheld gaming consoles from Xbox and PlayStation? Because I don't think Nintendo's doing it. Maybe not until whatever happens in the next generation, if they decide to go back to splitting it apart. So we'll see about that, but we'd love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.